I'll give you one thing you won't be wearing next week, which is burgundy, because the Eagles are just going to crush the Washington football team. Your concern over that game is ill-founded. The Eagles are going to win handily. All right, not as much as the Cowboys. Yes, I will predict the Eagles win by less than 42 points, but they are going to win easily against Washington.
All right, good. I'm a little more concerned about this game than maybe some others are.
Yeah. You got your Mac and Mac guys, Jerry McDonald and John McMullen. And we've got company. And it's always fun when we get our next guest up who, oh, by the way, took advantage of the fact that McMullen and I are in front of green screen, so we can't wear Eagle Green. Ed Kracz said, I'm putting my Eagle Green on today, baby. Showing proudly that the Birds are in the playoff push. Actually, in the playoffs as of right now. Nice choice of color today, Mr. Kracz.
Jody, it's just a green shirt, man. I put a blue shirt on and nobody says, hey, you're wearing Giants blue. It's just the shirt. Hey, this could be Jets. This could be Jets green too, Jody, if you want to look at it.
How about those Jets beating the Jags this week?
How about it?
The best rushing performance of the season, I believe, even better than the Eagles from the New York Jets. Is that correct, Jody? Didn't they run for like 270 or something?
I know that it was kind of a faux one because their quarterback took off, went 65 yards on one given play. Which, oh, by the way, did you see the Jags attempt to tackle on that play? You talk about a lack of fundamentals. Oh, my God. They just let him walk down the sideline for 40 yards, and three guys kind of just grazed into him and didn't push him out of bounds. But I don't think people want to hear about the Jets. They want to hear about the Eagles, Ed Kracz. How impressed were you with that win over the barnstorming New York Giants?
Well, listen, hey, it's an NFC East game. You can't apologize for any win in the NFL. And if you look at the Eagles' schedule when it came out, we kind of knew that this would be a chance for them to kind of put up some wins, right? I mean, how tough it was early on, and now it kind of softened in the second half, and we're seeing the results of that. But you have to give the Eagles credit because they're a team that has gotten better from week one until, here we are, week 17, and they are a better football team. And, some of that could be the competition, but we knew the competition was going to take a dip. So I was impressed with the win. Sure, it's not easy to win, especially a division game where the teams play each other twice, and this year those games are condensed. They just had beaten the Giants, or lost to the Giants, I should say, a couple weeks earlier. And now you're playing a Washington team that they just beat 12 days ago, and that's not easy. And, if the Eagles win, everybody will say, well, it's only Washington. They haven't beaten anybody. But listen, you can't apologize for any wins. We saw this coming when the schedule came out, and they're in the playoff hunt. And, I think Eagles fans should be very happy that they are in the playoff race.
Yeah, they should be happy. And that's interesting because I've gotten a bunch of Twitter people today, I guess because of the way Brian Flores took care of the New Orleans Saints in a similar situation with Ian Book last night on national television. A lot of blitzing, a lot of pressure. And we know that's not Jonathan Gannon's sort of modus operandi, so to speak. But did I miss the Eagles losing to Garrett Gilbert or Jake Fromm or even struggling defensively? Not only do certain fans want style points, but they want a certain type of style points. It's bizarre to me, Ed. What more can you do? They completely shut down. Their defensive numbers are unbelievable for the season now. And I want to talk about that with you as well, because you have to put the context on the good as well as the bad. But if you dominate a player or a quarterback or a situation, isn't that the goal?
Yeah, again, and this is a weird season now here as we come to the end of it with so many players turning positive COVID tests. So, you're playing teams that are, not only injured with, real injuries, but now you're playing teams that don't have a full complement roster with COVID. I think that Saints team wasn't really that Saints team last night against the Dolphins. I think the Saints had 21 guys on the COVID list. And, the NFL postponed the Eagles-Washington game when Washington had 20-plus players on its COVID list, and yet, they pressed forward with this one. And I get why they did. It was a Monday night game. I mean, when are you going to postpone it to Tuesday or Wednesday? And then, everybody's on a short week. So it's just strange. I don't understand why, fans aren't happy with these wins. Maybe they're spoiled that, the Eagles just won a Super Bowl a few years ago. And I don't understand why they want style points. Maybe they're not looking forward to a playoff matchup against Tampa Bay or Dallas or whoever, LA, and then getting maybe, potentially beaten pretty badly, because let's face it, this Eagles team can't start the way it has against Washington and the Giants and expect to beat, a pretty good team, I would think. But if you just get into the tournament, and I think you mentioned this, John, this is the year to get in because of all of the unpredictability of it, the COVID situation. You don't know what that's going to look like. So, you had the Arizona Cardinals riding high early on in the season, looking like the number one seed, steamrolling toward the, the playoffs. And now here they've lost to the Lions and then the Colts last week. So you just get in now and you take your chances. That's really all you can do. And that's what every playoff season is like. You just get in. And with the unpredictability this year, who knows what can happen? So I don't understand why fans want style points. I say just take a win and just turn the page and move on to the next week.
Eagles are now dangerously close to getting in and might do so before the last week of the season, which would give them the option of potentially holding guys out. I know you want to finish strong. They've won 4 games in a row. They've won 3 games in a row. They're going for their 4th in a row, something they haven't done since back in 2019. To win that last game will give them 5 in a row, which is something they haven't done since the Super Bowl season. You got to take it all the way back to 2017. They've won 5 games in a row. Yeah, I don't care. Once you get into the playoffs, your record becomes irrelevant. It's just win that game that day. And I would be cautious. I would sit Jalen Hurts. Kelsey's going to come out because they try and protect him at every turn, as well they should. What do you think they're going to do in Week 18 if they don't need the win, Ed Kracz? Go full bore to keep the winning streak going, or get a little conservative and protect players and get them off the field in a game that isn't going to move the needle at all?
Yeah, you get him off the field. I mean, it was interesting. We talked to Nick Sirianni yesterday, and I think I asked him about Jalen Hurts and his ankle, and how Jalen hasn't really been a big part of the running game these last 2 weeks. I know he had 2 one-yard touchdowns against Washington, but he only carried the ball twice against the Giants, and he kind of admitted that they were being cautious with his ankle, but now he says there's no restrictions with the ankle. They feel confident that he's over that, but they were being cautious. And I expect that if they're sitting there locked into whatever playoff seed they have heading into that Dallas game, that, they're going to sit Hurts. They'll play Minshew. I mean, Minshew's chomping at the bit to get back into a game after playing the Jets. They'll play Minshew. You're right about Jason Kelsey. They'll play whoever his backup is, but I would expect them to rest some guys. Now, they may not have any guys to rest in the running back room because, Miles Sanders is out. We saw he posted something on social media last night of him having surgery on his broken hand. That can't be a good sign for him returning anytime soon. Jordan Howard has a stinger issue. Who knows if he'll play Sunday? Sirianni said he was hopeful, but it was a stinger that ended Howard's season in 2019. He was having a very good year through 10 games, had the stinger, and then we didn't see him again because of the injury. So I don't know how many running backs they'll be able to rest because of these injuries, but Hurts for sure. If they're locked in, I don't think we'll see him Week 18 against the Cowboys at all, or Kelsey, or maybe even Slay. Some of these veteran guys. Cox might take a seat, and they'll play these younger kids.
Certainly would be interesting because you have that dichotomy. Obviously, you're right. I didn't, factor in Jalen Hurts' ankle, Ed, but you want a young quarterback to develop. Who knows if Dallas has to play, as Jody says, but for development's sake, that would be a big game for Jalen Hurts. And if you play the quarterback, you got to play the offensive line because you don't want a young quarterback behind a bunch of backup offensive linemen. So it is something to keep an eye on. I do want to play devil's advocate because, as I said, style points, take the good fortune, say thank you, and move on. And that's all the Eagles can do. But we know the 2-5 start. Since then, they've won 6 of 8, which seems very impressive. Every week, John Gannode, one of the Eagles PR staff members, sends out the numbers to us, and you've seen them, Ed. The Eagles are top 2 and 1 in offensive categories, top 5 in defensive categories since this little run started. And it's all very impressive. But I want to ask you, what's the most impressive win over this streak? And I'm putting you on the spot, so I'll give you the wins. At Detroit, at Denver. Remember, they had lost Pat Shurmur, their offensive play caller at the time. They were down, I believe, their 3 top linebackers. The New Orleans Saints with no Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill. It was Trevor Siemian. Jody's New York Jets, where everybody says, oh, it's just the Jets. The Washington football team with Garrett Gilbert, or the New York Giants with Jake Fromm.
Well, geez, John, when you put it like that, I would say, is there a plan? Is there, an option B? But I'll go outside the box on that, and I'll say I think all of them are impressive just because they won. I mean, and again, it's hard to win. And listen, the Eagles aren't some world-beating team. I mean, they could have easily have lost these games just as easily won them, and it wasn't easy. But I think they could have lost these games just as well as they could have won them. But to their credit, they have won them. I mean, this was a team that was 2-5, and a coach talking about fertilizing and watering flowers. and they,
by the way, he's still talking about that. That sticks in his craw.
I know, but it was a team that could have gone south very quickly. And I guess if you want to point to a win, maybe it was that Lions win. I know Detroit was winless at the time, but you've seen what they've done since. They beat Arizona. They beat somebody else. Didn't they have another win in there somewhere? Minnesota. I mean, and the Lions were a team that was coming in having lost some pretty close games on field goals. They needed a 60-something yard field goal from Justin Tucker to beat the Ravens. Needed that to beat them, and the Eagles went in there and just handed them their lunch, 44-6, and that might have been kind of the springboard. And it's strange to say a win over a winless team is that, but the Lions had been playing well. I hate to say it, but I picked the Lions to win that game based on how they were playing and the Eagles were playing, and the Eagles went in and smoked them. So I think that might have been kind of the biggest win of that group, just because of what it was a precursor to, which was, winning 4 out of their last 5 games.
Easily the biggest win of the year was Denver. They were above 500 at the time. On the road,
yeah.
I don't have Denver's record, but I bet you they're
they were banged up that week, though, Jody. They didn't
have
really
their tackles with them, right? They didn't have any.
I didn't even bring that up. They were down their top 3 linebackers. They were missing both their starting offensive tackles. They were really up against it as well.
But it was a big play by Darius Slay to turn that game around, that 83-yard touchdown return when it was a close game. And we've seen the Eagles defense do that a couple times, right? Against, I think it was it the Jets that Darius Slay had the interception return.
Yeah.
But, their defense.
But still, Teddy Bridgewater is a legitimate NFL quarterback. He's not a franchise quarterback. He's not a take your team to the Super Bowl quarterback. But he sure as hell isn't Jake Fromm. So, yes, beating Teddy Bridgewater on the road, even if they were down some guys with either injury or COVID, Denver was their best win of the season.
Yeah, Bridgewater is, you're right, a good quarterback. Terrible tackler, though, right? You started the show by saying,
I forgot all about that, Ed Kracz. Thank you for reminding about that.
If he makes a play,
attempt at a tackle all year.
Yeah, if he makes a play there that stops Slay from that touchdown return, who knows what happens in that game?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, they deserve credit. I'm just playing that devil's advocate because the schedule is as light as it gets, and hey, you can only play who they put on the schedule. So from that standpoint, the Eagles deserve a little bit of credit. Now, you mentioned COVID-19. We can't get away from it. Tom Pelissero tweets this morning from NFL Research. All right, here's the list. A positive test brings the total to 521 in December from yesterday, including 476 since December 13. That is nearly 1 out of 4 active NFL players. Kind of hit home yesterday. 4 players going on the COVID-19 list for the Eagles. It's just the way it's going to be, Ed. We sit and wait for 4 o'clock and see what shoe is going to drop. And we're saying, look, everything looks good for the Eagles this week. Green Bay should beat Minnesota on Sunday night. San Francisco should beat Houston. And if the Eagles beat the Washington football team under those circumstances, they are in the playoffs this week. Don't even have to play week 18. Don't have to play anybody. But what if Aaron Rodgers comes up? He can't, actually. So that's helpful because he already tested positive and there's that loophole. But what if other major COVID things happen? All of a sudden, the entire landscape changed. The Eagles have been lucky to this point. Lucky. I think there's a little bit of hubris that they're doing the right things. But all of a sudden, they have 7 people themselves on the COVID-19 list. It's not 21 or 22, whatever the Saints were, but it might be 22 by Sunday,
right,
unfortunately. So how do you prepare in these circumstances? Can you prepare?
Well, I think you can prepare all you want, and the Eagles are trying, right? I mean, Nick Sirianni said that they're going to start separating their quarterbacks and keeping them away from everybody. So that's, you want to have your quarterback healthy, but, look at your offensive line. Now you have Andre Dillard still on that list, and he's been on that list for over a week, but it's just crazy what's happened with the NFL and these tests. You mentioned that Ian, or who was it? Whoever reported today that there were over 500.
Tom Pelissero. Yeah.
Tom Pelissero. Yeah. Last year I saw a stat where only about 260 plus players tested positive throughout the course of the season. And now here we are over 500. So I'm not sure what you can do to prepare. It's just such an easily to transmit disease, or, this Omicron variant is so easy to transmit. I don't know if there's anything you really can do, but do your best, and that's separate the quarterbacks, do more things virtually. And that's what the Eagles are doing. And that's probably why you want to get into the playoffs. Now, I know you have a little more flexibility in the playoffs with scheduling, but you don't know who's going to pop positive, these next few weeks here and into the playoffs. So if you get into the playoffs and guys start testing, that sort of tilts the field a little bit. But the Eagles have been lucky. The 4 guys they got on the COVID list on Monday, 2 of them are concerned because they play the same position, Taron Jackson and Derek Barnett.
Yeah.
So, I guess on one hand, it's good they test positive on a Monday. That gives them a little bit more room to come back for Sunday. It's the guys that test positive on Wednesday and Thursday that you're probably not going to have on Sunday. So at least Taron Jackson or Derek Barnett have a chance to return. But if they don't, you're already so thin at that defensive end spot. Ryan Kerrigan, I know he hasn't given you anything, but he's a body you could throw out there, but he's on the COVID list. So, your defensive end's already thin. You're going to run Josh Sweat out there. I guess Milton Williams can play out there. Yeah. Fletcher Cox played out there a little bit against the Giants, which I thought was really something they should have done with Fletcher years ago, is play him more as a defensive end. So you're going to really have to see some defensive coaches, offensive coaches get more creative with this COVID kind of working its way through all these rosters. And we'll see what the Eagles do if they can't play those 2 guys, Barnett and Kerrigan and Taron Jackson.
Guys, talked to a buddy last night who covers the league, and he's a really good reporter, but he's also a cynic extraordinaire. And he theorized this with me, that there's a whole bunch, well, not a whole bunch of league, but enough teams in the league that actually want their players to go on the COVID list at this time. Because once you get on, you can get back relatively quickly if you have a negative test. And then, oh, by the way, you're not tested again for the rest of the year.
And that's the Rodgers loophole, what I was saying. Rodgers tested positive, but there's 90 days He doesn't have to get tested again, and that gets him through the playoffs.
Right.
It's a legitimate strategy point, I should say.
Now, if you show symptoms, you have to self-report yourself to the team doctors, and then they got to test you. You come up positive, you come up positive again. But my guy was suggesting, yeah, they're going to get these guys positive. They're going to get them back in after just a one negative test, and then they're clear for the rest of the year. So you better get it out of the way now. Have your positive test, get cleared, and be cleared for the rest of the year, rather than have it sometime during the playoffs. And he said, do you think anybody's going to tell that they're positive if they got sniffles, if they got any kind of a react? No, I'm fine, Doc. I'm fine, Doc. Nobody's going to self-report during the postseason. So we're going to have a bunch of guys. You think it's spread now? Wait till you get to the playoffs when a whole bunch of guys are not reporting themselves. There'll be even more spreading going on. We just won't know about it.
Yeah, and maybe that's the answer right there. I mean, listen, this thing isn't as deadly, I don't think, right? And
no, that's what they say.
Yeah,
we're not doctors.
I know. I mean, so maybe
I play one on streaming JAKIB Media YouTube channel, but I am not a doctor. But I will say this to Jody's point. Yeah, that's great if you're Green Bay or Dallas or Kansas City and you know you're going to be in the playoffs. It's not great for New Orleans last night. It's not great for Washington on Tuesday. They had legitimate playoff hopes that have been completely derailed by COVID-19. And as Peter King said, I'm sorry, it's no fun. It is no fun. Look, I know Eagles fans want their team in the playoffs. It's probably going to happen, although some don't. Some, for some reason, they would rather have better draft picks. I don't know. It's just no fun. Am I wrong? Am I being a curmudgeon? How do you guys see that?
What's no fun? I think it's fun to have a playoff team. Sure.
I meant when you're rolling over teams like New Orleans. If you're Miami, New Orleans is a playoff contender. Washington, from their perspective, a win over a full strength Washington team, and I'm not talking about Ryan Fitzpatrick. I'm talking about the normal attrition of NFL season where you have guys injured, they have to go to Taylor Heineke, but you win that game and it becomes an accomplishment. It's not an accomplishment to beat Garrett Gilbert. You take it, you do it. It's not an accomplishment to beat Jake Fromm. You take it, you do it. You say, hey, thanks for the good fortune, and you move on. But I do think it's less fun to do it that way.
Oh, I see. No, I think it's, listen, the COVID thing takes it to another level. Normally you just have the attrition of injuries, knees, ankles, shoulders, whatever the injury is. But this takes it to a whole nother level. But at the end of the day, to me, it's still football, right? You're still seeing a football game out there. And whatever team you choose for, if you're just a fan of football, I enjoy watching football no matter how it is. I hate to see these bowl games get canceled. I think they've canceled 4 of them. Just give me a football game that I can have on, whether I'm sitting there glued to it or it's just kind of things I check in and out of from time to time to see how it's going. Watch a few minutes of it. But I just like to watch football, and so it's fun for me no matter who's out there.
Yeah, I'm a curmudgeon because 2 times in a row, Ed. Now I turned off Dallas, Washington because it was an embarrassment.
Yeah,
and I turned off last night. I said, well, this is ridiculous. I would argue it's not football. And I don't know. We started the show with this. I don't know how to fix it if you're the NFL, but it's ugly. It is ugly. And to me, it's no fun. But obviously, I'm in the minority, as usual.
And we're in the moment, so I think we get caught up in the fact that, they're beating bad quarterbacks and reduced teams because of COVID, and we've never had a season like this before. We've had injuries. Guys have been out again because of injury. We've never had these COVID repercussions. I hope, crossing fingers, that 2 years from now, 5 years from now, we got a much better grip on this. Nobody's going to look back and go, the COVID year. Eagles beat up on all these teams and had all these guys who are out. It'll be forgotten. So I'm not going to let it bother me in the moment either, because I sure as heck know it's not going to bother me down the road that the Eagles won against teams that were more taken apart because of a virus. Ed, here's my question for this upcoming week against Washington. Forget about COVID. Are they going to be able to field the team, or are they going to fight all the way up until kickoff after what happened the other night? If that punch had landed on Sunday Night Football, if Jonathan Allen had landed that punch and laid his teammate out, I think Washington is basically a dead team walking. Do you think that Ron Rivera can get him to a competitive level against Eagles on Sunday?
I do. I absolutely do. I'll play the devil's advocate. Listen, I don't think Washington's very good. The Eagles should win this game, but it's a concern to me that there are a bunch of professional football players who just got their heads handed to them in Dallas. I would expect them to have a better effort against the Eagles, knowing the Eagles just beat them 12 days earlier, 13 days earlier, in a game that was competitive throughout, 3 quarters, 3.5 quarters. And they would probably love to spoil any hope that the Philadelphia Eagles have of making the playoffs. So I see a team of professionals that are probably going to be a little bit more galvanized by what happened in Dallas. Whether or not they're talented enough to win this game remains to be seen. But I think it's going to be a very close game for the Eagles. I don't think they're going to roll over Washington like Dallas did. I think you're going to see Ron Rivera is a good head coach. I think he'll have his guys maybe a little bit more bonded because of what happened in Dallas. That's going to be my approach to this game. Is I think Washington's going to play them close and they're going to play them tough. It's in their building. And they would probably like nothing more than to spoil anything that the Eagles are looking forward to postseason wise.
All right, last one from me, Ed, involves the NFL's change in hiring policies. Black Monday is creeping up on us typically in the NFL, but now you can interview. They tweaked the rule. In the final 2 weeks of the regular season, you can interview assistants from other teams if you've already moved on from your coach. So that would be Jacksonville and Las Vegas. Or you can also inform your lame duck coach, I'm looking at you, Chicago, that you're going to move on. And if you do that, you can start interviewing guys and get a bit of a head start. NFL media threw out a little bit of list, 6 guys, and I think this will surprise many Eagles fans. One of the names on that list, even though it shouldn't surprise them because we were talking about it, we have been talking about it, is Jonathan Gannon. Would Eagles fans be happy if Jonathan Gannon was one and done? Do they just want to move on to a different philosophy? Or would that be a significant hindrance to this organization?
Well, I think Eagles fans wanted Gannon out during the first 8 games of this season. I don't think they've really changed their tune any. I think they would be happy to see Jonathan Gannon leave. But I think it's probably premature to be talking about Jonathan Gannon as a head coaching candidate. I know NFL media mentioned it, but and I know he was a hot assistant coach hire in the offseason. A lot of teams wanted him to come on board and be their DC. The Eagles got him. But listen, I'm not sure I've seen enough body of work from Jonathan Gannon to say, yeah, take over my team. I think Doug Peterson will be a head coach in this league next year with one of these teams. I really do. I think a team will take a Super Bowl winning head coach that's on the market. But Jonathan Gannon, I'm not so sure that he would be ready to take that job. I mean, I know he's done a decent job with the defense over the last 8 games. Like you mentioned, the PR staff tweets out all these great numbers that the Eagles defense has compiled these last 8 weeks or whatever, 7 weeks. But I wouldn't be confident myself in turning my organization over to Jonathan Gannon just yet. I mean, I would let him kind of sit and try to, coach as a DC for a year or 2, see how they do next year, and then reevaluate him. But stranger things have happened. I don't know what other organizations are looking for. To me, I don't think he's ready, and I don't think Eagles fans would be very sad to see him go. I know Nick Sirianni might be sad to see him go, but there are some other defensive coordinators they could bring in out there should Gannon get hired, and that would be interesting to cover that job search. But I don't think Gannon's going to go anywhere. I really don't.
All right, let's wrap up on this one, Ed, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire and test your reporting chops. Let's say you go out for coffee this afternoon, and you go into a Starbucks, and you just happen to recognize, because he's a very recognizable guy, Gardner Minshew. But he's standing next to another tall and somewhat skinny guy, and you're not 100% sure, so you go to your phone, and you go under the Eagles roster, and you do figure out that it's Reed Sinnett that Gardner Minshew is having coffee with in the Starbucks in your neighborhood. Are you reporting on the two players? Because the quarterbacks are supposed to be separated. I couldn't pick Reed Sinnett out of a police lineup, but you might be able to. We can all pick Gardner Minshew out. That's not a problem. But will you report if the Eagle quarterbacks are commingling with the degrees they're going to keep them separated?
Of course I would, but definitely. But I would go up and talk to them. I would go up and say, I'd introduce myself. I don't know if they know me because we're not in the locker room. We talked to Gardner Minshew live once, and that was after the Jets game. I wouldn't know Reed Sinnett from a Tom Cruise. Well, I would know Tom Cruise, but I wouldn't recognize Reed Sinnett. But I would go up and say, "Hey, Ed Kracz, blah blah blah. What are you guys doing here? What's going on?" And see what they say. And I would report on it, and I would even probably tell them, "Hey, I got to do my job here, and I'm going to put this out there. You guys are sitting here in Starbucks in my backyard, for better or worse. But I just wanted to get your take on why you're here, this and that. So I would love that if that happened. To be honest with you, I would. I
think there's a better chance that Reed would recognize Ed Kracz than the other way around. To be honest,
we know Jonathan Gannon can recognize John McMullen, but we're not sure about Reed Sinnett with any of us. So we'll hopefully have a chance to find that out someday. Eddie Kracz, love the green. Thanks for coming on with us. You'll be up again next week, and feel free to wear whatever the hell you want.
Maybe I'll wear my Giants blue or my Chiefs red. I don't know.
Don't wear Cowboys blue. You'll get an earful.
Yeah, I'll put some stars on my forehead here, very prominent.
I'll give you one thing you won't be wearing next week, which is burgundy, because the Eagles are just going to crush the Washington football team. Your concern over that game is ill-founded. The Eagles are going to win handily. All right, not as much as the Cowboys. Yes, I will predict the Eagles win by less than 42 points, but they are going to win easily against Washington.
All right, good. I'm a little more concerned about this game than maybe some others are.
Eddie, always a pleasure. Thanks for hopping on with us. Ed Kracz here with us on Birds 365. He's got – all right, before we go to break, we got to take a break here. On a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being – I already cashed the check. 10 being I'm petrified and shaking in my shoes. How concerned are you with the Washington football team that they can upset the Eagles on Sunday?
I'm at a 4. I'm at a 4.
I'm at like a 0.4. I think the Eagles.
No, I think even though Taylor Heineke was atrocious in Dallas, he's at least an NFL player. I think he's proven that. He's probably not going to have 2 games like that in a row. Ed mentioned the divisional aspect. They got much more players back. Brandon Sheriff's going to be back. Their best offensive lineman. They're going to be healthier from a COVID perspective. I think, again, we don't know. You don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of days. But right now they look far healthier. And then, 2 times in 12 days on the road, that's always a little bit more difficult. It's sort of that kind of normal NFL thinking stuff. If you look at the Washington football team, though, they look like a dumpster fire. They look like they've given up on the season. You mentioned Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne. And then from the Eagles' perspective, the one thing that concerns me that we talked about a little bit with Ed is the running back situation. You need somebody. Miles Sanders isn't going to play. I don't know about Jordan Howard. We'll see as the week goes on. Boston Scott, people don't realize, is dealing with a knee injury. I don't think Kenny Gainwell's ready to be a bell cow back, somebody who can carry the football a lot. He can help you in the passing game. And then you're talking about Jason Huntley on the practice squad. And he's another Gainwell type, really not more of a situational guy. So I'm a little concerned about the running back situation as well.
Kenny Gainwell breakout game. Remember, you heard it here first this Sunday.
I'm afraid with 2 fumbles, Kenny Gainwell, if he touches it 20 times, he's got to put it on the ground.
Maybe, but you can pick it back up and take it in for a touchdown. Very much got the Eagle glasses on this morning. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, your Birds 365. We still got plenty to break down. An hour to go. Stay right here.